What's going on, everybody? It is Juan from Raven Drone Solutions. In today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about how the Marine Corps prepared me to start my own drone service provider business. If that sounds interesting, let's get right to it. So, a little bit of background on me. I did 6.5 years in the Marine Corps. I did from 2010 to 2017. Now, some of you might think, well, 6.5 years, how is that possible? Well, I extended on my original contract, which was 5 years. I extended for another 1.5 years, so you get the idea. So the first 3.5 years, I was an avionics technician. I worked mostly on the Harriers, and I'll actually provide a picture over here. And the next 3 years, I did embassy security, and I was posted in four different countries and 3 different continents. I was posted in the Republic of Congo, Malta, India, and Croatia. Really loved my time there. I learned a lot, things that I'm going to share with you here. I had a lot of experiences that, in my opinion, at least helped prepare me for running my own business. Some things that I probably didn't really think about when I was going through it, but now that I'm actually running my own business, things that I actually found to be quite useful. So definitely something I want to share with you. And if anybody that might have a similar experience, whether it's the military or maybe something else, please share in the conversation and tell me how it prepared you. First thing, and I think this is one of the most important, and that is the Marine Corps taught me to stay humble. Because one thing in the Marine Corps, and I'm going to talk about it in another point here, is the fact that there's always a bigger fish. There's always somebody that outranks you. There's always somebody that is better than you. There's always somebody more skilled than you. There's always somebody that has more time in the job or whatever the case might be. And especially when you're new and it's only been a couple years that you've been in. And you know, one thing that I saw when I was in the Marine Corps is sometimes is the person that you don't expect that actually is the most knowledgeable or the toughest guy out there. Sometimes you see this, you know, skinny little guy, and he can take more punishment than, you know, big, you know, alpha dog, you know, in the back. Like, it happens. So to me, staying humble is something that really is a powerful lesson, especially when you're starting a business and when you're running it, because, you know, look, things happen. And sometimes you may, like, for example, where I'm located, you know, I may grow well enough where I dominate the market in a certain niche, and that's fantastic. But, you know, I may be a big fish in a little pond. There's always somebody that can pretty much take my business. And especially in the Marine Corps, you know, like I said, there's always a bigger fish. And even you may rank up, you may you know, get positions, but that can all be taken away if you don't keep your head on a swivel. I'm pretty sure if any of you have ever served, you know what I'm talking about. You know, demotions happen. Some person, they get a little too comfortable. You know, they end up doing something stupid, and before you know it, they're busted down a rank, or they're demoted in position, whatever the case might be. It happens. So definitely, when you're running a business, it's very important to stay humble because things happen. And sometimes you may think you're the best guy, and you think you may be the, you know, hot shit in something, but the reality is a lot of times you're not. And, you know, you gotta keep your head leveled if you want to stay in the game. Second thing is that I'm always willing to learn. The Marine Corps taught me that I'm a perpetual student. I'm an eternal student. I'm always learning something different. Even when I think I have it down, I don't. There's a lot of things to learn. Like, for example, when I was a technician, there was always something new to learn. Everything from how to fix, you know, the control stick on an airplane to how to fix the throttle, you know, whatever the case might be. When I was doing embassy security, same thing. You may think, oh, well, I'm just here to look, you know, to have a presence, and, you know, and I'm going to be, you know, chasing down a guy like Jason Bourne in that movie, The Bourne Identity. If only. There's actually a lot more to the job than most people think. So, you know, with the drone industry, a lot of people think that, oh, well, all you're doing is flying a drone around and taking some cool pictures. And I wish that was the case, but no, that's definitely not the case at all. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to the drone industry. And even for something as simple as real estate photography, there's a lot to learn when it comes to real estate photography. There's a lot of things. If you really want to make the good money, well, you have to provide a good value. Now, in my opinion, real estate is not necessarily where you're gonna, it's not the cash cow. It's not where you're actually gonna make a lot of money. But regardless of that, there's a lot to learn. And if you really want to be like the go-to guy when it comes to a certain niche, well, that takes a lot of work. And that's a lot of things you got to learn, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. So definitely the Marine Corps taught me to always be a student, always be willing to learn, and try not to be the smartest guy in the room, because once I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm in the wrong room. Third point, and this kind of ties in with my last point about learning, but it is immersing myself and learning everything I can about the industry. Now, for me, one thing that I did was when I came back stateside, I didn't go and get a 9-to-5. I dedicated myself 100% to my business. Now, some people might not think that's the smartest idea, but I thought, look, if I'm going to do this, I got to go in full force every day, hitting it hard, learning as much as I can, because the thing is, this is not nearly as easy as people think. And, you know, especially like when I was in the Marine Corps, you know, whatever you decided, whether you're an admin guy, whether you're an infantry guy, whether you're artillery, intelligence, whatever the case might be, you really have to immerse yourself in the job. Not just in the job, but in being a Marine. Especially being a Marine. I don't know, I can't talk on the other services, so if you're in the Navy, Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, whatever, just don't take offense to it. I'm just speaking strictly as a Marine. Yeah, there were no days off as a Marine. You were a Marine 24/7, and you had to behave as such. Now, granted, this got a little annoying, but the fact is, you have to immerse yourself in that culture. It's not, oh, I'm only a Marine when I want to be, or oh, I'm only a Marine, you know, when I'm wearing the uniform, but once I'm off, I'm not a Marine anymore. Definitely not. And for me, when I started doing this, I immersed myself 100%. I read as much as I can, and I still do. I attend as many training sessions as I can. I try to learn as much as I can, because even though I've been in this for about a year and I've learned a lot, and I think I have a pretty good grasp on a lot of things, I've only barely scratched the surface of what there is to learn in the drone industry. So for me, it was all about immersing myself in that culture, in that lifestyle, and making the most out of it. Because if I had one foot in this and then one foot in something completely different, it just wouldn't make sense to me. Fourth thing that the Marine Corps taught me, and how this helped me run my own business, is take the initiative. No one's going to be telling you what to do at all, as a matter of fact. And this is not just with the drone industry, but just any business in general. Even if you're running a t-shirt company that all you do is print and send out, it doesn't matter. You got to take the initiative. Nobody's going to be behind you telling you what to do or anything like that, because the fact is, it's your baby. You're the one that cares the most, or should care the most about this business. So, you know, you definitely have to take the initiative, and you got to be proactive. You know, the Marine Corps taught me that a lot. It's take the initiative. Don't be waiting for somebody to tell you what to do all the time. A lot of times you just got to go out there and you got to make things happen. And obviously that's how you get promoted as well. So definitely take the initiative. Think outside the box. That's another big one. Believe it or not. Just because most people think the military, you have your blinders on and you're like this the whole time, and you don't see right or left. You only see what they want you to see. That actually couldn't be farther from the truth. You have to think outside the box. You have to, you know, for example, like I work on the security side. Well, okay, you have to think, all right, well, what is a possible threat that we have? And something that, you know, most people may not be thinking about. These are important things, and especially when you're running a business, you have to think outside the box. Because if you're doing what everybody else is doing, good luck making money on that one, buddy. I'm not saying you got to reinvent the wheel, but you have to do something a little bit differently. You know, sometimes you got to make the opportunity. So definitely, you got to think outside the box. You gotta think in a different way that maybe other people aren't thinking about, because that's what actually makes innovation, and that's what sets you apart from everybody else. So definitely think outside the box. It's worth it. Next up, and that is think strategically. The Marine Corps definitely taught me that. You got to think strategically. You got to think, all right, well, what are you really doing? You know, you can't be shooting from the hip. You have to think things through. It's like a chess game. You got to think 2 to 3 moves ahead, because when you just start thinking one move ahead, you're already too late. entrepreneurship and all that stuff. It's you got to think several steps ahead. All right, what are you doing here? What are you doing there? How do you plan on this working in the future? How do you plan on making actual money? You can't be thinking in the moment all the time. You got to think. You got to think a couple moves ahead. So definitely, you got to think strategically. You got to think of what are the possible consequences of taking a certain route or getting into a certain industry. Marine Corps is very big on that. You got to think strategically because that can get people killed if you're not careful. Next up, thing that the Marine Corps taught me, which has helped me run my own business, and that is taking ownership and responsibility. This is one of the most underrated skills that you can have as an entrepreneur, and obviously this applies in the Marine Corps or in the military in general. And that's the fact that, look, you're going to get placed in charge of things. Like when I was in the Marine Corps, even though I didn't really hold a whole lot of rank or anything, I only got out as a sergeant, but even then I had a lot of responsibilities. And when things didn't go well, when things didn't go according to plan, I mean, guess who had to take the fall? Obviously me. And a lot of times, I got a very, very stern, ass chewing on more than a few occasions. And, this taught me a lot, and it taught me a lot to take ownership and take responsibility for my actions, because I can't just point the finger. I can't just say, well, look, because of blah, blah, blah. I mean, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear the excuses. And especially when you're in entrepreneurship, you're a business owner, you have a responsibility, and you have a responsibility to your clients as well, because obviously they're the people giving you money. And one of the many issues that I think a lot of people face is the fact that they don't take ownership for their actions. I've actually seen this many times with many drone pilots, and obviously this doesn't fly. They don't stay in business very long because of the fact that, look, the client doesn't care about your excuses. They don't care that they're like, oh, I had errands to run, that's why I'm late, or oh my God, no, I didn't know. They don't care. They just want things done. So definitely, you got to take ownership and you got to take responsibility for your actions, because if not, you're not going to go very far with your business. Next up, be a leader. This is a very important thing, and not just in the military, but in entrepreneurship as well. We were told it doesn't matter whether you're a private or a general, you're a leader. Full stop. You're supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to take charge of situations. You're supposed to take ownership and go through with it. When you're running your own business, I mean, you're the leader. And even though technically, by definition, I'm a single member company, I mean, there are times where I either bring somebody else aboard and I pay them, or I'm in conjunction with another company and we're hashing something out. Well, guess what? If I'm the one that put it together, if I'm the one, or sometimes even I may not be the one that put it together, but if somebody isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, well, a lot of times I got to step in and I got to direct traffic. I got to be like, all right, look, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, whatever the case might be. But especially when you're running your own business, you have to be a leader. Like I said, nobody's going to be telling you what to be doing. Nobody's going to be behind you telling you, hey, listen, you need to get this done. You need to get this done. You got to do it on your own, because bottom line is, it's your business. So, I mean, you're the one that has to take charge of the situation. Next up, you got to be able to think on your feet. Very important. A lot of times, things don't go according to plan. Sometimes things change at the last minute. Whatever the case might be, you got to be able to think on your feet. The Marine Corps, we had a saying, "Semper Gumby," means always flexible. Things hardly ever go according to plan, so you just better be ready for it. Don't fall in love with your plan, because it most likely is not going to happen that way. So definitely, Marine Corps taught me that very, very, very quickly. And especially when you're running your own business, it happens all the time. Next up, be able to plan and execute missions, or just actions. This is something that the Marine Corps obviously harps on it very much. Whether it doesn't matter whether you're planning a patrol, you're planning an assault, or you're just doing routine maintenance on pieces of gear, or you're organizing an event, whatever the case may be. You got to know how to plan and execute it. And obviously, when you're running a business, same thing. And especially when you're running a drone business, well, you got to be able to plan missions, execute them. You got to get all the logistics. You got to do all kinds of stuff. I mean, even for something as simple as real estate, still same thing. You got to plan the route. You got to plan where you're going. You gotta see what's going on around you. You got to understand the hazards and the logistics. For me, I'm doing a real estate gig. Okay, well, where is it located? What are the parameters? Am I even allowed to fly the mission? Okay, if I am, all right, cool. Well, what's the route I'm going to take? What are the shots I'm going to take? How many batteries do I need? How long am I going to be there? What's the best time of day to go? What's the end result that the client wants, and how do I give it to them? And what's the time frame? What's the deadline? These are all things you gotta know when you're running your own business. And the Marine Corps, they really harp on that all the time because they're all about getting things done on time, deadlines. So definitely, Marine Corps taught me that very, very well. Next up, and that is you gotta be able to take criticism and rectify mistakes. Like I said, there's always a bigger fish. There's always somebody that's going to chew your ass out in the Marine Corps. And in business, it's not that much different, I'll be honest with you. You got to have some real thick skin if you want to survive. And you got to be able to take criticism. Sometimes I may think that I'm doing something fantastic, but I'm really not. And I've seen this several times. As a matter of fact, I would say my wife has probably been one of my harshest critics when it came to certain things. I mean, she has a great eye when it comes to film and photography and stuff like that. And there were times where I did some sample shots, and she was like, "This sucks. You should do it again because like the exposure was wrong, or the angle was wrong, or the horizon was all out of whack. Whatever the case might be." And sometimes you just gotta. It's a tough pill to swallow, but you're just gonna have to do it because, like I said, there's always something new to learn, and it's just we all make mistakes. There's times where I've done a video and I thought, oh my god, this looks amazing, and turns out when I saw it, went over it a few times, I noticed a lot of things that I did wrong and things that I should definitely watch out for. So and it happens. I've had people tell me a few times. They're like, look, I love your enthusiasm. I think what you're doing is great, but look, what you put out wasn't really up to a standard. And some people gave me another chance, but the fact is, first impressions make the lasting impressions. And sometimes, you just got to learn to take the criticism because the fact is, we all make mistakes. But it's a matter of how you bounce back from that. How do you rectify those mistakes? How do you go through so you ensure that they don't happen again? One of the big things is do not take anything personally, and definitely the Marine Corps, do not take anything personally because a lot of times it's not personal, it's just a professional thing. But same thing with business. So definitely you have to know how to take criticism and you got to rectify mistakes. And Marine Corps taught that very well because one of the words you hear all the time is, "Hey, mother." You know which one I'm talking about. I'm not going to say it. But, you got to learn how to take criticism. Marine Corps, you get criticized all the time for the dumbest things. Next up, you got to be organized. Marine Corps, you know it. I mean, everything from your uniform, your haircut, how you shave, all that little attention to detail, to everything from executing missions, doing your job on a day-to-day basis. I mean, even for me, when I was an aircraft technician, which some people might think, oh, that's easy. No, it's not. You have to be organized. You have to plan things correctly. For me, for a little while, I was in charge of production. So, okay, we had new pieces of gear. Okay, what's the priority and what isn't? What is currently being worked on, and how quickly can we get it out? Stuff like that. You gotta go by the list, and you gotta be organized. Because if not, things don't go according to plan. Things are just in poor condition, tools get misplaced, whatever the case might be. You get the idea. This is something that I had to learn the hard way because to this day, I'm not the most organized person out there. I struggle with this quite a bit. That's why a lot of times I have to write things down. But definitely, the Marine Corps, it instilled that sense of being organized, very, very quickly. And even though it's something that I still struggle with from time to time, I look back on my experience in the Marine Corps, and it's something that definitely helped me out in many ways, and that's how I've had a pretty decent amount of success, even though it's only been 1 year. Next up, and that is doing proper briefings and after action reports. Now, this is more specifically with something like the drone industry or with anything regarding like anything tactical or anything like that, because not just that, but you get the idea. And it's because of the fact that especially in the Marine Corps, you're doing briefings all the time. You're briefing people on what's going on, or your team is about to go and do a patrol. Well, you got to do a briefing. You got to do a debriefing. You got to do after action reports. Now, granted, I don't always do this when I'm flying drones, because sometimes I go from one place to the other. I don't have the time to be doing any kind of briefings or anything like that. But I have done it from time to time. For example, if I had a big shoot once, it was a commercial property. So what I did was, people that were with me, I said, look, okay, this is what we have to do. This is what the client wants. This is how we're going to do it. This is the time that we're going to be doing this. This is what we need to take, whatever the case might be. Once we were done, okay, listen, let's go over what happened. Let's go over what we did right. Let's go over what we did wrong, and let's rectify those mistakes. Kind of tying into my last point. But especially whenever you're running a business similar to what I'm doing, you got to do briefings, you got to do debriefings, you got to do after action reports, because that way you ensure that things are done correctly the next time around. And obviously, Marine Corps is big on that. All right, next up, and that is to be able to be adaptable and work in constantly changing environments. So, Marine Corps is big on that one. Like I said, Semper Gumby, always flexible. And I mean this when I say this. I mean, that was, every day was different, and no 2 years were exactly the same. There was a lot of things that happened, and especially when I did embassy security duty. I mean, I was in the Congo, then I was in Malta, then I was in India, then I was in Croatia. I did security contracting for a bit. I was in Australia. Even though I was in those countries for a decent amount of time, still no 2 days were the same. And you got to be adaptable. You got to be willing to improvise. You got to be able to adapt to the current work environment. And especially in the drone industry, and especially in my case, because I'm a hybrid between the creative and the more industrial side of things. Well, I may have 2 missions in one day. I may have some, like a blogger or a real estate agent that wants some really cool pictures and videos of a property or of an event or whatever the case might be. And then my next client may be somebody that does utility inspections or insurance or whatever the case might be. And obviously those requirements are very different than what I'm doing in the creative side. So you got to be adaptable. You got to be able to speak the language. Actually, one time I was offered a job to do power line inspections, and they actually offered me the job because I spoke their language. I asked a lot of questions, and basically I did a little bit of research on how they operate, and I said, okay, well, let me talk like they do. So that is something that I learned when I was in the Marine Corps very, very, very quickly. Like I said, I was originally an avionics technician, and then afterwards I did embassy security duty. Well, embassy security duty is very multi-layered. You're obviously a Marine, but you're also in a diplomatic environment. And each duty that you take, well, it requires a little bit of a different way of thinking. And also obviously as a technician, very different culture, very different language. So, as a drone service provider, well, I got to be able to be adaptable. I got to be able to, even if all I'm doing is real estate photography, well, I could be doing an efficiency house in one shoot, and then the next shoot could be a big high rise in Miami Beach or in downtown. You never know, and you got to be adaptable. You got to be willing to think on your feet, because if not, you might lose business. So definitely the Marine Corps, because every day was different, really, really got me good at getting used to that one. Be able to perform and thrive in austere environments. A lot of people don't think about it this way when you're in the drone industry, because all they see is somebody flying a drone in a cool location, but that's not always the case. I've flown in areas where it is hot, humid, or it's freezing. I've flown in other cases where there's a hornet's nest right next to where I am, or where I'm flying, or there's nothing but mosquitoes everywhere. Or when I did hurricane response, I'm talking down power lines, there's damage everywhere, there's flooding, there might be people that are obviously in need, but you still have a mission to do. Obviously, there's no secret in the Marine Corps, even if you're an admin guy, well, you got to be able to perform in austere environments. You're not always going to have your air-conditioned office. Sometimes you got to be out in the field for days on end, and no way to wash yourself or anything like that. When I did hurricane relief, I didn't shower for like a good couple of days. By the time I got home, my wife told me to take my clothes off, put it in the washer, and go take a shower because I stunk. So definitely the Marine Corps prepared me very well for that, and especially as a drone service provider, it's one of those skills that's very, very needed. Look and perform like a professional and deliver on time. Very, very important skill. The Marine Corps taught it from basically day one. Actually, scratch that. Even before I went to boot camp, the recruiters really instilled that in you. Because, the Marine Corps prides itself on looking sharp and always behaving like a professional and delivering on time. And especially for my business, I apply that same logic. For me, whenever I go to a site, I'm in my uniform, I look the part, and I try to, and I ensure that I deliver whatever product that I'm offering, I deliver it on time. And I always conduct myself like a professional, because the minute that I start to slack off, the minute that I'm not acting like a professional is the time that I start to lose business. Because if people say, oh yeah, this guy, he's not very professional, he's not on time, he looks very sloppy, his work is very sloppy, well, that's not a good look, and you're going to lose a lot of business like that. Definitely, Marine Corps taught me a lot in that regard, even though as much as I like having my hair and beard, and I don't see why that's unprofessional, still, I try to look the part, I try to always have a clean appearance, I always like to make sure that whenever I go somewhere, I am treated like I should be treated, because I act in a way that inhibits people to treat me in this way. And they know that when they meet me, I mean business. Just like when I was in the Marine Corps, whenever I was, especially at the embassy, I shook hands with the ambassador, I looked them straight in the eye, and people were like, oh, okay, this guy means business. This guy, we want him because, he's a hard charger. I know it's a little moto, but you get the idea. Last and certainly not least, be able to work in diverse environments. Now, a lot of people, when they think of the military, especially the Marine Corps, they don't think of a very diverse environment. They think we're all the same, we all have the same mindset, some of us look very much similar. That actually couldn't be farther from the truth. I would say probably the most diverse environments that I've ever worked in was actually in the military, and also to a certain extent, the drone industry. And this really prepared me because, and I'm not just talking in terms of race or religion or things like that, which, don't get me wrong, you do see a lot of different personalities, but it's also lifestyle and people with different occupations. So, as I said, things like knowing how to speak the language of your client. Well, in the drone industry already, I have served telecommunications, I have served power lines, I have served realtors, insurance agents, creative types, car dealerships. So, and there's others. And this is something that really I got good at when I was in the Marine Corps, because I learned how to talk to people of all different walks of life, nationalities, religions, you name it. Like I said, I was posted in all over the world, and on top of that, even where I was posted, there was all sorts of people. And people that, from different political spectrums, different beliefs, different lifestyles, different religions and backgrounds. And honestly, I love that kind of environment, but it also prepared me for running my business, because I'm not just around one group of people. I'm around many different types of groups of people. And especially the drone industry, it's so broad, there's so many things you could do that you end up really coming in contact with people from every walk of life you can imagine, and you got to be ready for that. So definitely the Marine Corps taught me that, it prepared me for that very, very well. Alright guys, so that is it for today. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If there's any other veterans out there, especially Marine Corps veterans, please comment down below. I would love to hear what you have to say. Contribute to the conversation. And is there anything I missed? I would love to know. All right, guys, so that is it for today. See you next time.